7 o'clock, I'd like to call the August 1st meeting of the Person County Board of County Commissioners to order at this time. Recognize that we do have a quorum. I'll lead us in an invocation, and you pray with me if you don't mind or if you care to. And ask Commissioner per year to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Would you pray with me? Our Heavenly Father and Almighty God, we thank you for this honor and privilege of assembling here tonight to conduct the business of Person County and its citizens. We pray for your guidance and your direction in all decisions made, that they may be to the benefit of all and within your will. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda would be discussion and adjustment or approval of the agenda as presented, with maybe one minor change. We do have Ms. Abby Charlo here tonight, who will be representing county commissioners at their state conference. And so maybe we could have her speak right after we address discussion and adjustment or approval of the agenda.
Move for approval.
A motion on the floor to approve the agenda as stated with the change. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. And Ms. Charlotte. There we are. Come on up, young lady.
Hi, my name is Abby Charlo. My parents are Mark and Whitney Charlo, and I'm going to be a rising freshman at Person High School. I am a part of the College Preparatory Academy, meaning by the time I'm a junior, all my classes will be at PCC. And when I graduate high school, I will graduate with a diploma and an associate's degree. Some of my hobbies include volleyball, which I hope I will be playing at school and travel level. I have tryouts both this week. I take dance at Christie's Dance Center, and I am also a member of Southern Middle School's National Honor Society. I attend church at Mount Zion United Methodist Church, and I'm also very active in 4-H. I've been to Millstone 4-H camp since I was 10, and I always enjoyed making new friends there. The camp counselors always made my cabin feel like a family, and I absolutely loved it. I'm excited to attend 4-H conference, and I'm so excited to be a part of this youth voice. I want to learn more about county governments and how they make decisions, and I appreciate you allowing me to attend. Thank you for your time and this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate what you're doing and very proud of you for doing such. Thank you. At this point in our commissioner meeting, we do have a 10-minute public comment period set aside for citizens to address this board. And may I remind speakers, if you're signed up to speak, that this is a period for citizens to address this board with their concerns. It is not a dialogue period with board members. When speaking, please do so with civility and decorum, and be concise and to the point with your comments. Also, please be reminded that we do have a time limit and a time allowance when your time expires, and you will be alerted by a staff member. When that time expires, please be seated. Madam Clerk.
All right, we have 4 members of the public wishing to speak.
And so we'll go with 3 minutes, just extra 30 seconds if they
All
need
right,
it, but
that'll be great. All right,
3
our
minutes.
first speaker is Brittany Farman of Roxboro.
what was their last name?
Farman, Farman.
First, I would like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the Board of Commissioners. I would like to speak to Charlie directly. You've been asked to resign 3 times in the short span that you have been a county commissioner, and you've declined to listen to your constituents. You represent us. You are supposed to be the person that we look to for advice. But instead, we're asking you to resign over and over again. The other week, you decided that it would be okay to shoot a dog 6 times in city limits. Many of your constituents have questions about that, and you haven't addressed it publicly. We ask you to resign once again, not only for myself personally, but for the rest of the county. Your job is to protect our interests and be our leader. We don't see you as that right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Miss Joanne Hammond of Roxboro.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I appreciate it. My name is Joanne Hammond. I'm a resident of 228 West Gordon Street, North Roxboro. I stand before you tonight grieving for my sweet dog, Sophia. Sophia was 15 years old, a boxer mix who was brutally shot to death by Charlie Palmer, a Person County Commissioner, on Wednesday, January 20th at 12:25 in the afternoon as he walked his dog on James Street. The act of violence, Mr. Palmer, was cruel, senseless, and unnecessary. I am sitting in my backyard with Sophia when she lifted her head, sniffed, and began to run, breaking her cable. She ran across my neighbor's backyard, which is allowed. I have a letter. I followed Sophia quickly, but was not there in time to prevent Mr. Palmer from unloading his seemingly entire clip into Sophia's side, left side, the side he was coming up on. A witness saw Sophia in the grass in my neighbor's yard, not in the middle of the street. She was not running towards Mr. Palmer, but rather he was walking towards her, and he continued shooting her on her left side. If a dog is about to attack, there would be a shot in her head or her front, not her whole left side. The police saw the casings in the grass, not the street. After bullet casings were found in the yard, the police saw the casings in the grass, not in the street. After being shot, Sophia fell forward. She did not die in the street, like you said. The police saw the casings in the grass, not the street. After being shot, Sophia fell forward into the street. I ran to get my grandson, who then held Sophia as she bled out in pain and died in his arms. A very, very cruel way for a 15-year-old family pet to die. Sophia was my grandson's best friend for 15 years. Mr. Palmer kept walking away, but never turned and yelled to me, but then turned and yelled to me, "You may need to beat this from the profanity," he said to me. "Next time, buy a effing thicker chain." My heart was broken, and this is the behavior of our elected official. The way Mr. Palmer acted is no way for any human being to act. The witness also heard him say, and again, pardon the language, "I'm going to shoot all the MNFers I see." What an embarrassment to Person County. I know everyone's thinking Sophia was a vicious dog. No, I have letters from several people, including a neighbor, a veterinarian, and a groomer.
That's your time allotted, please. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Sharon Slaughter
Okay.
of Roxboro.
My name is Sharon Slaughter, and I'm here to support Joanne Hammond, and I'm going to finish what she didn't have time to finish. As she said, I know everybody's thinking, was Sophia a vicious dog? No. I have letters from several people indicating, including a neighbor, her veterinarian, and her dog groomer, who state that she has never showed any aggressive behavior. As a matter of fact, the only person who has ever complained about Sophia is Charlie Palmer. But never had Sophia harmed Mr. Palmer's dog or Mr. Palmer. Sophia was an inside dog and only ventured out for bathroom breaks And when we were with her, she was terrified of loud noises such as the thunder, the vacuum. A warning shot would have prevented all of this had Mr. Palmer truly felt threatened. There is more, and again, I'm speaking for Mrs. Hammond. There is more I could say about Mr. Palmer poisoning the cats across the road and waving his gun at me, my grandson, and my dog. But I think you have heard enough tonight. My family is devastated, and we ask that you dismiss Mr. Palmer of his duties as a county commissioner. I also ask that the Roxboro City Police do a thorough investigation, and I ask that the district attorney's office look at this as a case of animal cruelty. It was not self-defense, as Mr. Palmer claims. I thank you for your time and consideration, and I also support her from the bottom of my heart. I spent several hours with her today, and I surveyed the area. I looked at the directions everyone was coming in, and this needs to be addressed. But certainly, I don't think we want an elected official like Mr. Palmer representing us.
And I don't
Thank
think
you.
we should pay the coach.
Thank you.
All right, our last speaker is Ms. Cynthia Lynch of Hurdle Mills.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just wanted to comment on one of the aspects of the meeting on July 18th, your last meeting, the discussion about the ongoing discussions with Duke Energy. And I noticed that the comments from Mr. Hankins was that the Passaic County will advocate for the Mountain Valley Pipeline. I just wanted to thank this board for the efforts you are doing to work with Duke Energy and hopefully keep those coal plants here. And if they can't be coal, then get that pipeline so we can have natural gas. Thank you for those efforts.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is item number 1. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve, and I'd also like to thank the staff for the in-depth reporting of what those budget items are. I think it's very clear. It's much better than it was in the past, and I'd like to thank them for doing so.
Have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Non-motion carried. On the new business, item number 2, broadband infrastructure expansion update and consideration to adopt a resolution supporting the partnership with Cloudways to expand broadband infrastructure in Person County. Ms. Kathy.
Good evening, Commissioners. First, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce our lead for North Carolina fellow who joined us today for his first day of service with Person County. He will be here with us for the next year. His name is Keshav Javadi, and he is here with us this evening. So we are very glad to have him. Now, moving on to the broadband update item. As you may know, this is an ever-evolving topic, and I do have some additional information to share with you about each of the programs in your agenda abstract that was not available last week when I wrote this. So first, I wanted to give you an update about the GREAT grant. It has been a little while since we've discussed this. As you know, Person County does have 3 applications that are pending with the state for consideration for grant funding. The state announced on July 18th that they had awarded 12 counties grants totaling about $23 million. We were not part of that first award that was announced, and they did indicate that they would continue making the grant awards on a rolling basis throughout the months of July and August. They announced today that they have made another round of awards, but we are not included in this round either. So we will continue to wait to find out what may be coming our way as far as the GREAT grant goes. But today they did announce that 11 additional counties would be receiving $30 million in awards. So in total, they've announced about $50 million in awards. The program is a $350 million program. So there is still quite a bit of funding remaining as they continue to go through and select the grant applications. So far, Charter and Spectrum have received 9 awards. Brightspeed CenturyLink has received 1, and Zytel has received 1. And those are the 3 who did make applications on our behalf. And the remaining grant awards have gone to a variety of other providers. Moving on to the next program, Completing Access to Broadband, which is referred to as the CAB program. That will be the next round of funding through the state that is available to us. And that program, they've put out some initial information about that program, but it still has not been completely defined within the public realm, and they'll have an information session in the future. So we don't know a whole lot about that yet, but my understanding is that once the Great Grant Awards are all allotted, then we'll have the opportunity to work with the state to identify areas within the county that will still remain unserved or underserved, which is an additional layer to this program. We can look at underserved, which will open up more homes that may be eligible for grant funding. I met last week with Jeff Brooks. You may remember him. He was with ECC Technologies and completed our broadband inventory study. He is now the Deputy Director for Infrastructure, CAB, the last mile broadband infrastructure for the Office of NC, Department of Information Technology. So he is making his rounds with all the counties to make sure we are well aware of what our opportunities are with the CAB program. And he did explain that the program has been structured as a competitive bidding process where we can put out an RFP for providers to respond to serve the areas that we identify, or we can choose to go with one of the great grant applications that did not receive an award and fund that through the CAB program. So it looks like we're going to have some options to consider when that time comes. And he does anticipate that this whole process is going to play out before the end of this calendar year. So we should hear shortly about the Great Grant Program and then be able to move into the CAB program in the fall. So hopefully we will have a better idea of who we will be able to serve over the next several months. Then we had a new proposal that came up within the last few weeks, and I did an overview of that for you in this packet and actually asked or recommended that you approve a resolution of support. After I give you more detail about this, you may want to hold off on approving that resolution until the next meeting, or considering approval of the resolution until the next meeting, and I'll explain why that is. But this Middle Mile Grant Program is a federal government program, and private providers can apply to that to run middle mile infrastructure. And the purpose for doing that is to make the last mile more accessible. So putting in what's called the middle mile infrastructure, in theory, would allow providers then to be able to run the last mile service out to the homes and businesses at a lower cost because the middle mile infrastructure is already there. So their proposal, which they initially made to the economic development directors within the Carter region, had a very tight time frame, trying to identify who was on board by August 1st, which is today, and then trying to determine what final design would look like by August the 15th. But we're all trying to take our time in clearly understanding what they're proposing and whether this will work on a regional level. So there are still moving parts to that. They are working with MCNC and the state who are consulting with Cloudwise to look at their design proposal and make some refinements to that. So Cloudwise, which I didn't give you a very good description of them, they are out of Wilmington. They have done work in Nash County, and then there's one other county that they've been working in as well. But they have not done this middle mile infrastructure build previously. So there's a bit of a learning curve for them. They are trying to make this proposal as strong as possible and are utilizing resources to pull that together. The grant applications are due by September 30th. With that, the grant awards will not be made until March 1st of 2023. So one big question is, how does all of this fit in with what we're trying to do with the Great Grant Program and the CAB program? We don't want to duplicate efforts, so we still have some time to figure that part out through the end of the year. And in talking with Cloudwise, they said that they could modify their proposal based on what we end up doing through the other grant programs. They do propose running this middle mile fiber loop in Person County, and it closely tracks the loop that ECC Technologies had proposed in their study as being a very good fiber build out in terms of reaching key areas within the county, anchor institutions, getting closer to the homes and businesses that are unserved or underserved. So what they have put out there seems to be well researched and well planned. And then they would intend to be the last mile provider, which is what they do now, and would want to serve their customers either through new fiber or through fixed wireless. Fixed wireless may be their solution if the density is not there in certain areas to make running fiber worthwhile financially for them. So I did include the maps in your agenda packet, which compared what they are proposing to do regionally and specifically within Person County to the maps that ECC Technologies provided. And again, I did talk with the Cloudwise representative today and let him know that I wanted to give you this information. I wanted to find out what questions you have. We can possibly invite them, well, we can, at your request, invite them to come on the 15th and make a presentation once there are more details ironed out with this proposal. They are not asking for any money from the county, so they are just asking the board to support their application and to also try to find other stakeholders within the community who would also offer support. So it is a project that could reach a lot of people. It has 5 years to be built out though, once the grant is awarded in 2023. So that is a pretty lengthy timeline. They said that they would intend to do it within a couple of years. So we're looking at something that has definite possibility for us coming in and being able to reach more people and get that, build out that middle mile to a greater degree. But there are quite a few questions that still remain and some details for them to work out on their end. So I wanted to give that to you in the form of an update, find out what questions you have so that I can go back and continue to work with them over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. Board member comments or questions?
Hi, Mr. Chairman, I have questions, of course.
Sure.
Refresh my memory of how many of the 100 counties, how many counties are vying for the Great Grant Program?
Almost all of the counties.
Okay,
There
so
are
we've got
only
23 that have been awarded so far, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to, out of the 350 million, and you said July and August for the second and third rounds. How far are they going to be progressing with the grant, the awarding of the grants? Through what period of time? Are they just going to, until they run out of money? And
that's my understanding, that they will run out of money. And my understanding is they will initially do one award per county that has applied for great grant funding. And then if there's funding that that remains after that, they would go back and possibly award a second grant to some of the counties based on the way they've scored the application. So
are they looking at tier 1, tier 2 counties in any particular way or?
I'm not sure what the ordering of the grant, what is driving the order in which they are announcing these grant awards, but they have their scoring criteria. So
Mhm.
they're taking a lot of different considerations into a lot of different factors into consideration when they're scoring, but I'm not sure what the rhyme or reason is for why certain counties were awarded in the first round and certain counties second. But my understanding is it will just be on a rolling basis. So we might
Okay.
hear about another round of them next week, or it might be in another 2 weeks.
Do you know about the scoring? Do you know what, are you privy to any of the components? Are
we
one of the
do.
components the projected growth rate of a county in the next decade?
Don't know. I don't recall that being the specific criteria, but I can pull that and share.
Because I
with
would
the
think,
board
I
so
would
that
think if
you're
somebody's looking to
aware.
make an investment, they would wonder how that investment could,
Mhm.
improve over time. I'd
I'm
be
glad
curious
to
about that.
send you the scoring criteria so that
Okay.
you're aware of that.
Catherine, you have, we talked about the counties that were awarded. Do you have those counties, the list of them? And we can identify whether they're tier 1, tier 2 as we look through that. But if you have that list. that
Well,
would
New
be interesting to
Hanover
look
is
up
on
and
this
see.
list. New Hanover County is on this list. Bertie County is on this list. Cleveland County, so Gaston County, there doesn't seem to be a real
Right.
rhyme or reason that I can see. I'm sure that
My impression was that this was really supposed to be for underserved or not served areas. And it just seems like the money's going other places. I'm just kind of curious about that, but not surprised.
well, there's a mix so far,
Yeah.
as far as who's been awarded.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Well, I did have a conversation as recent as Friday with a CenturyLink representative, and pretty much what you're talking about there. The outlying areas are the major concern, the unserved and underserved. And of course, on the telephone, I get plenty of positive comments, but at the same time, with the numbers and what I was being told there coincide with what you saying, and we just have to keep working with it. Appreciate you staying on top of it. And
So does this proposal interest you as far as continuing to invest staff time and trying to?
It doesn't
figure
cost
out?
us anything to,
doesn't.
to support a resolution. I
Right.
think anything that we can throw at the problem is up to our benefit. And hopefully the more stuff we throw at the issue, something will stick.
Well, my plan then would be to come back on the 15th, just with some
Right.
additional details in place for your consideration and then approving the resolution.
so no action required tonight. Is that right?
That's fine with me,
I mean,
if that's
or
okay
should
with the
they?
board.
I thought that was my understanding. You were
It
saying.
was, and I talked and clarified with Cloudwise today that all of this is just moving a little bit slower than they had hoped. And they are fully aware, and they had built in a cushion with that grant timeline that it will be another couple of weeks before they start hearing from counties as far as whether they want to be involved.
You need a vote. I'm sure the board would. Okay.
I don't need one to continue. I just wanted to make sure that y'all were interested, and I can give you some additional information before.
Is having a resolution approved today or 2 weeks from now going to have any? Then why don't we just do it all at once at the next meeting?
I'll try to keep it brief.
Jay, what you're doing there,
Okay.
it's extremely important to everybody in the county. So thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Goodness. Moving along. On then with board member comments. One thing I would like to mention is that Commissioner Gentry and I attended a meeting at the Volunteer Fire Department at Timberlake last week. And it was a meeting concerning the proposed park on the county farm located in that vicinity. And it was very well attended, and lots of good comments, both pros and cons to that project, but the kind of thing we need. And coincidentally, there will be another meeting in this room on Wednesday of this week. If citizens out there would like to attend and hear the proposal as well as comment from their vantage point as to that particular project. There was a Carter Regional meeting held Thursday of last week that Commissioner Gentry and I were in attendance to also, and it had a planning for the region. I think it was very well attended and had a lot of good input there, and they're taking that back for a final report from the region. I think too, previously we'd had some emails concerning the opioid settlement that was worked on for quite a while down through the years, but some of you may have gotten a letter or email from the Attorney General's office that had the wrong county name in there. The one that I had, the one that came to me had Person County on.
They must think I live in a different county.
Or whatever, but the numbers were the same regardless.
Okay.
So I did look that over, and I think that's extremely important, although it's a 15-year commitment, I think, going out quite a while, but it's significant amount of money, $2.5 million, I believe, and maybe $300,000 within this calendar year. So it's important that we look into that as much as we can to direct that funding in the right direction, because the opioid issue here in Person County is the same as I would almost say nationwide. It's serious. And so at least there will be some funding there to help us in that realm. Mentioning Duke Energy, there are that's an ever-changing scenario, I think, when we're talking about our counties. The county possibility of losing a couple of our power plants here. And I do think some things have changed, and maybe even the last day or two related to that issue. But I want to assure the citizens of Person County that we're working on that as hard as we can in the best way that we know how, because I don't think there are any real answers right there right now. But we are an intervener. We have that status, and we do have 2 attorneys that are working on that for the county. So I look forward to some good outcomes and good results related to that. Mr. Raff?
Yes, sir.
You can have.
I have 3 items that I'd like to talk a little bit about and get some direction. One of them is it's in your current budget, in your capital improvement plan. It's this room. And yes, this room, well, no, this room is not ideal for what you do. But you approved $120,000 to upfit this room, and it was listed as a Board of Commissioners boardroom. And I got to doing some research, and this room is used so often with everything. And I'm just trying to get some feel as to what your intentions are before we start looking for an architect to try to help us, one, eliminate the noise factor, which is probably the biggest thing, and other than having just a surroundings that look more like a boardroom. But also, if you choose to make this exclusively as a boardroom, what do you do with the other activities that are used here? And I think I pointed out that about every other day, there's something in this room, 15 times out of a month in most cases. Some of it's, stuff that's generated by the county, but also some of it's private. So what I would like is that if you just have a little discussion as to what your intentions are or how you'd like to proceed with this. So when we ask an architect to do something, or to acquire an architect, we at least know what to tell them what we're trying to do. Any thoughts there?
Well, I'd like to say, I've been to other boards and board meetings in their rooms, and you have it set up for the county commissioners
but it's not just solely for the county commissioners. If there's enough room and it's a good place to have a meeting, people have other meetings there. So I don't see this being totally used just for county commissioners, but certainly make it look like a board meeting room. And then, of course, you can still have other activities here. And that's my opinion.
Okay.
I would agree with you, Mr. Sims. Just a point of information too, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sims was at that meeting. Commissioner Sims was
sorry.
at the meeting with the Economic Development Regional
Didn't mean to
Council.
leave you out.
I just want
Thanks,
to
sir.
make sure that he
I
was
was
there
gonna
with
mention it
us.
was my turn to talk.
I just wanted to say that
Good.
before I forgot, but I agree, because if you look at the city council here in Roxboro, they've got a chamber that's laid out with, with the chamber for the council, but they also have seating that's permanent. I don't know that we'd have to have permanent seating installed yet at this point in time. We can still, have what would you call it? A platform built here for the commission, because I think we've outgrown the room upstairs. I truly believe we've outgrown the room upstairs.
Yeah.
So it's necessary.
I see that's a critical piece, but the other side I see is the sound.
Mhm.
It's terrible in here, and you got a tile floor and concrete walls, and it just sound bounces everywhere. So I kind of see that as probably a significant problem, but also trying to make sure that we, in my opinion, leaving it where it can be a multi-purpose room, whether you just allocate part of it or not. So that will give me some direction as to how to move with this one. I go back to the Charters of Freedom presentation last month, did a little research on that, had some conversations with them, trying to get a clear understanding of this project and whose responsibilities were what. And there are some local costs involved in this project, and we don't know how much. But the local costs are more the landscaping, the concrete work or whatever, and the electrical work part of it. But at this venture, or this point in it, the first thing we have to do is to select a site that we want to consider being a site for it. It's been mentioned a lot. I've heard at least 2 or 3 different sites that you've talked about, and trying to get something nailed down. And when we do, we will in turn get an agreement together that identifies all the costs of each person or each group. We have had some interest, at least, of possibly funding this. I've talked to a couple this week about possibilities of funding these, but it's difficult for them to commit until we at least know what the costs are going to be. So I think your chore will be to decide among yourselves as to where you want to locate this. And this doesn't have to be done tonight. It's just something that I think that we need to have some discussion on and try to figure out where to go. So that's, you can see if it's, I know the sites have been, 2 or 3 different sites have been talked about, and
Or should we get 2 or more? 2 can go without the press getting angry at us, or we could all go as a board if we want to, and get with you and Mr. Fishy and take a look at some locations. I don't know what.
if that works for you, we can make that work.
Okay.
Or just kind of looking at the different areas you want to go to and find a day that's suitable for everyone. We'll go look and we will move forward from there.
Mr. Chairman, one option is to just call a special meeting and have it on the courthouse grounds. And there's no requirement that a meeting be inside a structure. It'd be a special meeting on the courthouse grounds and everybody's invited with notice.
But there are a couple other sites, so.
Would be a
Yeah.
field trip for the commissioners.
Well, that was just it. We would most likely look at more than one side.
Yeah.
Mr.
So-
Sims.
Yeah, I was just, a couple things I wanted to mention about that is that picking the site obviously is important first step. The other thing is that how are they going to look at that site? Is there, drawings or something?
They will do
That will tell us,
Yeah.
this is what it's going to look like in this particular site. And then because that'll make to me, a big difference in, is that the site we want it on, or is there another spot that we want to try? So that was my thing.
Yeah. If I understand from my conversations with them, which have been kind of loose in a sense that they will provide the architectural, probably the conceptuals or what these things would look like, maybe on a couple sites. I would think so.
Okay.
I think it's certainly worth pressing because of the fact that you're right, just going looking at a piece of grass and some concrete and saying, oh, I like this. What is it going to really look like at the end? So,
Yeah.
or maybe if we can get a couple selections and I'll get some pictures to them and let them prepare a conceptual design for us.
That would be good.
We'll get together then
Okay.
and
Well, the next item I have is, I call it the Roxboro Square lease, or whatever you want to call it, it's a social services health department building. And I think I told you last month, or I told you at least in my memo, today we have exactly 2 years left to decide if we're going to stay in that building or whatever. And I am recommending to you that we at least start some negotiations to see what can come out of a lease or purchase of whatever of this building. Now, while you still have time, you don't throw away your third option. And I am requesting that you authorize me to proceed some negotiations. There'll be no cost. And so it's one of those things that I think that if you don't do it today, you lose that third option and you lose your upper hand in negotiating. So I am asking that to some response tonight on that if I can.
Ralph, I'd like to just say that our previous lease was 20 years.
20 years.
20-year lease. I certainly don't think we need to do another 20-year lease, in my opinion.
The
That's a long
clause
time.
in the lease gives you, it's at 10 years.
Okay.
So
And just information I've gathered since I've been on this committee and is that I think they don't want to sell the whole place. I mean, they don't want to just give us the DSS building. They want the whole thing if you're going to sell it or if anybody's going to buy it or anything. That's just what I've heard. So I don't know.
Well,
But that would be, again, you can negotiate that, see
Yeah.
where we're at. But the buildings definitely needs help, needs some work. It's something that, I think at least we need, obviously we're going to have at least maybe up to 2 years. And I know people fall out of their chairs, but something we maybe need to think about is a new county office building, somewhere where we can have DSS and have a lot more facilities there that, and again, location, cost, a lot of money, but certainly that building's getting old and we need to think about in the future what we're going to do, and we buy a little time and figure out what we can do if there's some land or a good spot to build, something to think about.
Yeah. Typically in negotiating these leases, there are upfits of whatever that are based on the square footage that you lease, that they allow you to make those improvements or such as painting or carpet or, adjustments. But also some of the complaints that I've had since I've been here they have complied with the terms of the lease. It's just been on a very minimal basis. And we are looking at negotiating a lease with the possibility of us taking on some of those things, the maintenance up to a certain level. And I think we have a couple buildings, we already do that on taking on the generator, for example, or taking on the custodial work. Those are areas that we've had problems with. And we know about what's built into a lease per square foot. And we've tried to do some estimates internally as to whether these things work, what we can negotiate. So those are things that we would look at.
I think at this point, what Mr. Clark is looking for is a consensus agreement that he move forward with talking with the owners and see what might come out of that.
I see nothing to lose here.
Absolutely.
Well, in time, time is of the essence here. 2 years will go by pretty quickly, depending on what.
Yeah, 2 years will be here before you know it.
What we wanna do.
But I think that,
So if there's a consensus, I don't know what,
Mr. Chairman,
Go
I would
ahead.
like to recommend that
Yes.
we authorize him to go forward with the county, interim county manager to go forward and investigate the possibilities of extending, renewing a lease.
Okay, anyone opposed to that? All in favor, aye.
and I have one final thing. This Thursday, I will not be here. I think I told you I have cancer and I have a cancer treatment on Thursday, so. It's a long ways from here to go. But my cancer treatment's in Newbern and it'll take a full day to do it, so.
All right.
Certainly,
Okay.
certainly.
And that's all I have today, sir, or tonight.
All right, Commissioner Sims?
Well, other than you mentioned that I was at the planning meeting, I will say in that planning meeting, it was very informative on how the citizens feel. We talked about the positives, we talked about our negatives of our county and things we need to work on, or what we feel like improvements we can make in the county. And I thought it was good for everyone to share that. And so we'll see where it goes from there.
It was a good meeting, and I apologize to you, sir. Beg your pardon. Try not to do that again.
No problem.
Commissioner Palmer?
No comments tonight. You stole one of mine.
Oh, sorry.
Duke Energy.
I didn't get the memo. Commissioner Gentry?
Nothing to report, just a comment is that my understanding, and maybe the county attorney can, give me thumbs up or not, of my understanding of the bill that passed the Senate that's going to the House that looks like it may pass, does have the Mountain Valley Pipeline completion, in it, which means that runs through Danville, which means it's very close to us. Is that,
Well, no
if that
bill,
passes, is that
no
a
bill has
possibility?
passed either house of Congress yet. Here's what happened.
Okay.
And there was a Washington Post story this afternoon about
Yeah.
this. You all probably are generally familiar with the so-called Manchin
Yep.
deal
Mhm.
in Washington. I suspected that there was probably a side deal to go along with that involving some projects. And it turns out that there is a side bill.
It's a hopeful sign.
It can't all, under the Senate rules, all be part of the so-called reconciliation bill. Only money items can be in that reconciliation bill. So it will be a separate deal, but the story this afternoon says that the idea, this bill will be drafted to remove some of the procedural roadblocks and some of the things that sometimes hold up major projects. And specifically, there is a provision, apparently, I don't even know whether this bill has been drafted, but a provision to speed up approval of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which will run, you remember, through West Virginia, down into southern Virginia.
Right.
And then from there, the Mountain Valley Southgate pipeline will run down into North Carolina, Rockingham and Alamance County, i.e. close to Person County, to be a source of natural gas. So yes, that is a positive development.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Perrier?
Just want to comment to the county manager regarding the commissioner chambers. I think it should be a multi-purpose hybrid room. Last week I was actually in Clayton in their city council chambers, and there was no permanent setting, but you could tell there was chambers, but it was large enough, a little bit about the same size as this room, that it can be used for other purposes, but still be used as commissioner chambers. So, but I was, when I was looking at that room, I said, well, this is kind of with the scope of what I was thinking of. And that was, again, that if you want to look at the city of Clayton, that would, also with the monuments, I think it would be good for all of us to get together, kind of brainstorm what would be good. I've got a few places in mind that I was thinking possibly look at the Person County museums, since they do hold a Constitution Day event out there, to see if they may be interested in having the monument there as well. So that, I look forward to that as well.
Okay.
All right, that concludes our regular meeting. We have a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
And that motion is to go into closed session, I'm sorry, for General Statute 143, 318, 11A6. Those individuals to attend would be interim county manager Ralph Clark, clerk to the board Brenda Reeves, county attorney Ellis Hampkins, and Renee Malak via media or video call. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Take about